been a while. So, story time is back. I'll be completely honest with you, this one. Thank you, Mr. Modman. And this is not a nice story, and I'm sorry. I apologise in advance. So, before we go any further because of it, hi, I'm Bucky. Hey, kiddo. So, this story is not for anyone under the age of Evening Red. I'm still getting used to calling you that. It's not suitable for anyone under the age of 18 or anyone with a nervous disposition. Normally I have my sheet in front of me and I have no fucking idea where to put it, so I'm trying to do this off by heart. For that, I know it's been a while since I've did one of these stories, but for this and any other story over the last year, jump on over to my YouTube channel. They all get uploaded there every week when I do them. If you are watching on YouTube, hi, welcome in. Please hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so that you always get told when I upload. Feel free to share my stories, but please, if you are sharing them, remember to put that it is an over 18 only due to the graphic nature of the content. There, that's the legal bit out the way. I wrote it as well and I can't actually remember it completely, but so you need to bear with me with that, but I'm sure it's in my folder somewhere. I can't find the bit of paper that I wrote it on, typed it up on, because I didn't write it. I tend not to use a pen, but that's irrelevant. So, now, as you know, I've not done a story for a wee while now. It's been a few months, actually. I think September was the last one. Because, if I'm honest, I kind of lost my motivation. I had some pretty bad writer's block, and I just couldn't get my thoughts together. I had ideas, I knew what stories I wanted, things like that, but I couldn't get them from up here to down here to here. I couldn't, as you can see, I still haven't found my fucking clipboard. It's good to be back, but I couldn't get it all together. But on top of that, if you've been here for a wee while, you'll know that these stories can get quite dark, and researching them, it can take its toll emotionally, even on the darkest of people, i.e. me. That said, I've got a plan going forward. I'm thinking that, now obviously I'm going to keep doing story time, don't panic, I'm not getting rid of story time, but I'm going to do 3 stories and then take a week off and do a movie night. So it'll be 3 stories, and then on week 4 it'll be a horror movie, and then back to the stories after that. It just means that I'm still streaming, I'm still putting out content, but I'm not doing story after story, so I get a wee bit of a break in between. So that's the plan going forward. I'm going to do 3 of these and then 1 horror movie. And then back to that. I'm going to structure the horror movies a wee bit more as well, so that, let's face it, horror movies, they usually go in series, like Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Evil Dead, things like that. So I'm going to start going down that route, so that after the 3rd story's coming up, you know what movie I'm doing before you tune in. So like say I've done Halloween 1, I'll then do Halloween 2. That's the general idea. No saying that it's going to be Halloween, just for the record, I'm only using that as an example. However, I do have a story for you tonight. And it's probably, at least for me, anyways, the hardest story that I've actually done so far. I'm not gonna lie, as I was finishing typing this up earlier, maybe about 6:30, I was just putting a few final touches, last minute edits, before printing it off. I was crying. And I know that's technically nothing new because I was crying on Friday when we finished The Walking Dead, so that kind of happens quite regularly. But this is the hardest one for me so far. And I've got a folder full of them down there, okay? We've covered some pretty hard shit over the last 12 months, but this one got me the most. But it is what it is. So, we're going back, but we're not going back too far, really. Wednesday the 13th of March, 1996. A lone shooter walked into an elementary school, shooting dead 16 children and 1 teacher. He injured 15 others before turning the gun on himself and ending his own life. Now, unfortunately, this story isn't something new to us, especially in the age of the internet where information is readily available. We hear about school shootings all the time, whether it's on the news or, like I said, online. It happens more frequently than anyone would like, really. But what makes this particular story stand out for the rest? Why is this one different? Why am I covering this one and not any other? Well, let me explain why this one is so vastly different to every other one. You see, this shooting, it didn't happen in America, or even Canada, or in any other country where you would think that it might have happened. You see, friends, this story took place in a country where guns are not readily available to the public. They are not easy to come by and they're not common. This particular school shooting happened in a small town near Stirling in Scotland. And some of you might already be familiar with the story that I'm about to tell. But for those not familiar with this horrible tragedy, I am talking, unfortunately, about the Dunblane Massacre, which is still described, as the deadliest mass shooting in British history. Yeah, I remember it very well. Now, there are events throughout history where people can always remember exactly what they were doing when the news broke. Off the top of my head, obviously before my time, death of Elvis, Kennedy assassination. People that were around, they remember what they were doing. Personal examples of mine, the 9/11 attacks. I was in the back of a black cab in Glasgow, returning from my shopping, when it came across the radio. The death of Princess Diana. Again, I was in my mum and dad's room, I was watching TV, when my mum came in and she told me what had happened. For me, the Dunblane shooting is no different. Well, I was in my second year at high school. I was 12. I'd only been 12, I'd just turned 12 2 months previous. It was the afternoon and it was straight after lunch. And we were in modern studies class. in fact. The teacher was a 6'2", big built, bald man. And his name was Mr. Ferguson. And again, kiddo, you'll remember Mr. Ferguson. He was a scary big dude. Big, bald guy. Such a sweetheart, lovely guy, but he looked terrifying to a bunch of 12-year-old kids, okay? So, yeah. So, Mr. Ferguson came in and he broke the news to us. All the girls in the class started crying, myself included. The boys, they thought it was a bad joke to start with, but they quickly realised that this scary big, not scary guy wasn't joking. The colour had drained from his face, he looked ill, so they could tell that he was in fact being deadly serious, and of course their demeanour changed. Now, we didn't know at the time how many people had died. Because, again, you'd have been 8, so yes, you would have been primary 4. You weren't even 8, it was just before your 8th birthday. It was 11 days before your 8th birthday. So, it was before social media, before really the internet, in all fairness, was common. So, the reports were slow in getting to the public, because obviously nothing like this had ever happened before in the UK, let alone a small town 5 mile outside of Stirling. See, it's one of those lifetime events that you know where you were when you heard that. And it's terrifying that it happened in the first place. But everybody always remembers. If they were old enough to notice it. I don't know that my husband wasn't even 3 years old when it happened, so there are some that luckily can't remember. They know of it, they know what happened, but they can't remember. So, so like I said, reports were slow in getting to the public because it was before internet, before cell phones, before social media, before anything like that. We were literally just dealing with police press reports, on-scene press, things like that. So it was kind of slow in getting to us, but we knew that it was bad. And that the school in question was for the youngest of school children. We didn't know at the time just how bad it was, and we'd no way of knowing until later on that day. So, around 8:15 on the morning of on Wednesday, the 13th of March 1996, a 43-year-old man was de-icing his van outside of his Stirling home. Afterwards, he drove around 5 miles to the nearby town of Dunblane. He arrived on the grounds of Dunblane Primary School at around 9:30 a.m, so the kids had only been in school for half an hour. And he cut the cables on the bottom of the telegraph poles. He used a pair of wire cutters, so it was clearly premeditated. He cut the telegraph pole wires that supplied the nearby houses, cutting communications to and from the houses that surrounded the school. He knew what he was doing. This was planned, in my opinion. Just want to put that out there. Now, after disabling the comms, he made his way across the school car park towards the school buildings. Now, the man in question was Glasgow-born Thomas Watt Hamilton. Born 10th of May 1952, Hamilton had been the subject to many police reports concerning his behaviour towards young boys. They obviously didn't know it at the time. No internet. So this shit was slow in getting to the public. Now, some of these reports included claims that he had been taking photos of nearly naked boys without parental consent. Although, to be fair, can't really actually imagine there being many parents who would agree to letting a man take photos of their semi-naked kids. Just putting that out there. Of course it was without parental consent. Oh, but that's what the reports say, so. Now, he was a scout leader for a short time before being appointed as assistant leader with the 4th and 6th Stirling of the Scout Association in July of 73. Later that year, he was appointed leader of the newly revived 24th Stirlingshire troop. However, history began repeating itself, and the complaints regarding his leadership skills began to come in, mainly that he was making the young boys sleep in his van with him in close proximity to him during hiking and hill walking expeditions. Due to these complaints, on the 13th of May 74, Hamilton had his scout warrant card removed. Didn't know that was a thing. But, oh, Red, that gets worse. So he had his scout warrant card removed on the basis that he had questionable morals and untoward intentions towards young boys. He was blacklisted by the association, and a later attempt to become a scout leader in Clackmannanshire was denied. So even after he was stripped, he then went to another area and tried to become a scout leader there. What? So Hamilton goes quiet for 20 years. Till around 93. Hamilton's quiet. And in 93, he tried to start up his own business. But, however, it failed. And several letters to members of Parliament and even Queen Elizabeth II herself, he blamed a smear campaign against him by the Scouts Association. He's done nothing wrong. His business has failed because the Scouts have got it in for him. He also started up a youth club for young boys. Yeah. Again, because of the past allegations against him, this was quickly stopped with the help of the police and the Scout Association, because obviously the police, there were complaints, and to the police looked into his background, they found out what had happened with the Scout Association, who basically said, nope, we've had nothing but allegations against this man, you need to shut that shit down. And they did. The Boys Youth Club was closed. But again, it's all the Scout Association's fault. It's all part of a smear campaign. Because he'd done nothing wrong, remember? He was the innocent party. Now, 6 days after the Dunblane shooting, Hamilton's body was cremated, and at an unknown location. But according to police spokesman, a police spokesperson, the private service was conducted far away from Dunblane. That's all we know. there. I've not been able to find out where. But sorry, I got sweeties for my birthday and they are so fucking good. And they're vegan, so they don't upset my stomach. It's great. So, yeah. Anyway, that's the background covered. Let's get back to that horrible day in 1996. 3 years after his business went belly up and failed to go off the ground, and his youth club get shut down. Because, you know, even back then, certain people aren't liked. End of. Now, Hamilton headed towards the southwest side of the school after cutting the comms and crossing the car park to a door near the toilets and the school gymnasium. After entering, he made his way to the gymnasium armed with 4 legally held handguns, 2 9mm Browning HP pistols, and 2 Smith & Wesson M19 347 Magnum revolvers. Hamilton was also carrying 743 ammunition cartridges. Speech impediment makes this shit so difficult. In the gym was a class of 28 primary 1 pupils preparing for PE. Now, for anyone not familiar with the Scottish primaries, I don't know how it works south of the border or in Wales, I genuinely don't know. But for anyone not aware of how it works up in Scotland, primary 1 is ages 4 to 6. You're either, there's a cut-off out to when you start primary school. So you're either just made the cut-off, which means you're 4, or you're at the other end of the year, which could make you 5, coming 6. So this was a class of aged 4 to 6 year olds. Probably 5 and 6 actually, to be fair, because of when in the school year it happened. So this is a class of 5 to 6 year old children, okay? And there's 28 of them. And they are getting ready for PE lesson in the presence of 3 adult members of staff. Again, don't know how it works elsewhere, but for the younger children, it's what it, I don't know if it still is, but it was one adult per 10 kids. So for 28, 5 and 6 year olds, they needed 3 members of staff. It's different in a classroom setting, but in the gymnasium, when you've got 30 kids running about, it's all hands on deck. So there was 3 members of staff, 28 pupils in the gymnasium at 9:30. Before entering the gymnasium, it is believed that Hamilton fired 2 shots onto the stage of the assembly hall and the girls' toilet. Now, again, gym and assembly usually in the same room. Hamilton started shooting rapidly and randomly. He shot PE teacher Ellen Harold, who was injured in her arms and chest as she attempted to protect herself. And he continued shooting into the gym. Harold stumbled into the open plan store cupboard at the side of the gym, along with several injured children. Gwen Mayer, the teacher of the primary 1 class, was shot and killed instantly. The other adult present, Mary Blake, a supervisory assistant, was shot in the head and both legs, but also managed to make her way to the store cupboard with several of the children in front of her. This woman basically used herself as a human shield. After being shot in the head and legs, this fucking hero used herself as a shield to get those children to safety. As many as she could. Now, from entering the gymnasium and walking a few steps, Hamilton had fired 29 shots in a matter of minutes. Couple of steps, 29 shots with one of the pistols. He'd killed one child, injured several others. 4 injured children had taken shelter in the store cupboard, along with the injured Harold and Blake. Hamilton then moved up the east side of the gym, firing 6 shots as he walked. He then fired 8 shots towards the opposite end of the gym. He then walked towards the centre of the gym, firing 16 shots at point blank range into a group of children who had been incapacitated by his earlier shots. This is a group of children, 5 and 6-year-old children, that he had already shot, and he opened fire on them at point blank range. 16 shots, point blank, into a group of injured 5 and 6-year-olds, barely bigger than toddlers. Now, a primary 7 pupil, so this would be a 10, 11-year-old child at the most. For anyone again that's not familiar with the Scottish education ages. A primary 7 pupil was walking along the west side of the gymnasium on the outside at the time, and he heard loud bangs and screams, and he looked inside. Hamilton shot in his direction. He'd seen him. The pupil was injured by flying glass. So Hamilton saw this kid, shot at him, didn't shoot him, but the broken glass injured him. And the kid ran away. Now, from this position, Hamilton would go on to fire another 24 shots in various directions. He fired shots towards a window next to the fire exit in the southeast end of the gym, possibly at an adult who was walking across the playground. He then fired 4 more shots in the same direction after opening the fire exit door. Hamilton then exited the gym briefly through that fire exit door, firing another 4 shots towards the cloakroom of the library, striking and injuring Grace Tweddle, another member of staff who happened to be there at the time. Now, in the middle of the classroom closest to the fire exit that Hamilton had left, Catherine Gordon saw him firing shots and instructed her primary 7 class to get down onto the floor before Hamilton fired 9 bullets into the classroom, striking books and equipment. This is 9, 10, possibly 11-year-old children at this point. Now, 1 bullet passed through a chair where a child had been sitting just seconds before. So if it wasn't for that teacher's quick thinking and telling those kids to get their asses on the ground, then at least one child would have died. After this, Hamilton made his way back to the gymnasium. He dropped the pistol that he'd been using and took out one of his 2 legal revolvers. I really need to stop eating these, but with the revolver, it's the one part of the story that I actually fucking like. He put the barrel of the gun in his mouth, pointed it upwards, pulled the trigger, and killed himself. Only part of that fucking story that I like. I'm not gonna lie. Would I like to have seen him face justice? Yeah. But he'd still be in jail now, living it up, 3 meals a day, TV, phone, visitors, PlayStation. No. As well, the justice system in this country kind of sucks, in my opinion. But he does us all a favour. A total of 32 people sustained gunshot wounds inflicted by Hamilton over a 3 to 4 minute period. 3 to 4 minutes, that's all it took. 3 to 4 minutes. In the time it takes to boil a kettle, this man had shot 32 fucking people. Babies. I know I won't use my indoor voice because that's fucking... 16 of whom were fatally wounded in the gymnasium, including Gwen Mayer, the primary 1 teacher, and 15 of her pupils. One other child died en route to the hospital, taking the total to 1 dead teacher and 16 dead infants. I have nothing. I genuinely have. Normally I have a sarky comment, but I have nothing. 16 dead infants and 1 dead teacher that tried to save them. Now, the first call to the police was made at 9:41 by the headmaster of the school, Ronald Taylor. No relation before anyone says anything. Who had been alerted by assistant headmistress Agnes Olson to the possibility of a gunman on the school premises. Olson had told Taylor that she had heard screaming from inside the gymnasium and had seen what she thought were cartridges on the ground. And Taylor had been aware of loud noises which he assumed to have been from builders that were on site. That he just assumed that there were builders on site and nobody had told them. Not being funny, but really, dude, you're the headmaster. If there's going to be building, you're probably one of the first people to find out about it. Just saying, you know? As he was on his way to the gym, the shooting ended. And when he saw what had happened, he ran back to his office and told Deputy Headmistress... How many fucking deputies did they got? Oh, right. Fiona Eddington to call for an ambulance. A call which was made at 9:43. Now, the first ambulance arrived on the scene at 9:47, so 12 minutes later, in response to the call made at 9:43. So 12 minutes later, the first ambulance arrives. Another medical team from Dunblane Health Centre arrived at 10:04. So 19 minutes later, which included doctors and a nurse who were involved in the initial resuscitation of the injured. So it's treat the walking wounded, bring anybody back that you can. Medical teams from health centres in Doon and Callander arrived shortly after. An accident and emergency the accident and emergency department at Stirling Royal Infirmary had been involved of a major incident involving multiple casualties at 9:48. So they were warned just 5 minutes after the call went in for the ambulance. They knew that this was big and it was headed right their way. Now the first of several medical teams from the hospital arrived at 10:15 a.m. Another medical team from Falkirk and District Royal Infirmary arrived at 10:35. So basically, now what I can gather, because hospitals, it's not that they're not equipped to deal, but taking 32 people into a hospital at one time, all of whom suffering from varying degrees of bullet wounds, not a good idea. Too many people, such a small space, because then you've got parents, you've got partners, you've got family. It wouldn't work. So, rather than try and transport the injured teachers and children to the hospitals, they brought the staff to the site, which works because you can treat them instantly. You don't need to wait on transporting them from the scene to the hospital. It's an unnecessary delay in treatment. So they treat them on site and then move them to the hospital that they're going to. Now, by 11:10, all the injured children had been taken to Stirling Royal Infirmary for medical treatment. However, as we know, one child passed away on their way to the hospital. Upon examination, several of the patients were transferred to the District Royal Infirmary in Falkirk. Again, all those patients coming in at once. No. More were transferred to the Royal Hospital for Sick Children in Glasgow. So, basically, their main goal to get these children patched up and then shipped out to whatever hospital they could fit them in. They went to Stirling to start with, and then they would, some of them, the ones that could be moved, were moved. It worked. They were able to save so many lives. More unfortunately passed away, but they were able to save so many times. Interesting fact. Future tennis players Andy and Jamie Murray, tennis superstars by no stretch of the imagination, were both pupils at the school during that day. They were in that school that day. But they were not injured during the event. So they were there, but they were not injured. Now, one memory that has stayed with me since I heard about it pretty soon after it happened was the story of a little 6-year-old girl. She'd been off school the week before and the Monday, Tuesday of that week, because she had been ill. Nothing serious, she just had an upset stomach, if what I can remember, but she'd been kept off school. Now, the little girl had begged her mum to let her return to school on the Wednesday. Why do I feel like I've missed it off? I know I haven't, but Now, the wee lassie. What? It's... If you're asking what I'm talking about, I am talking about the Dunblane Massacre. Every Sunday I do a true life crime story, and this week I'm talking about the mass school shooting in the small Scottish town of Dunblane. So, as I was saying, this little girl, 6-year-old little girl, she'd been off school for a wee while because she'd been ill, and she begged her mum to go back to school on Wednesday because she didn't want to miss PE. It was her favourite part of the school week. She loved PE. The mother relented. As a little girl, she was feeling better, and she let her go to school so that she wouldn't miss her favourite class. The little girl skipped happily into school that day, waving goodbye to her mother. And unfortunately, that little girl was one of the 16 children that were killed that day in her favourite class less than 1 hour later. And I don't know why, but that story, that particular one, that stayed with me all these years. And like I said, I was 12 when this happened. I was second year at secondary school. But that one story of that one little girl, so desperate to go to her PE class, and it ended up, it cost her life. And the guilt that little girl's mother must still carry is... It's horrifying to think about, I'm not gonna lie. I just, as a mother myself, I mean, if my kid, when they're adults now, the both of them, they've been taller than me for at least 5 years, but they are... I always felt guilty if they got hurt or they got upset, or... But to carry that with you, knowing that your little girl had been ill and begged you to let her go back to school so that she wouldn't miss PE, and ultimately she died in that class. That would haunt me forever. As a mother, I know that would. I would never get over that. I mean, obviously a parent never gets over losing their child, but to lose a child in such a way, it's horrendous thinking about it. So, we'll never know why Hamilton did what he did. Why he decided to open fire on a classroom full of 5 and 6 year olds. Babies and their teachers. One of whom died bravely trying to protect as many as she could. And another survived her injuries, but ended up being shot in the head trying to get those kids to a cupboard where they would be safe. I mean, we can speculate as to the reasons. Many people have in the past and continue to do so, and they will continue to do so for as long as we remember the awful events of that terrible day. You know me, I've always got an opinion in these stories. It is my personal opinion. Just want that, put that out there. It is my personal opinion. But I believe that Thomas Watt Hamilton was a sick and twisted individual who, in his early years, had developed a liking for young boys. But he was caught, and when his business went under, because his past had caught up to him, he blamed children, rather than admit that the fault lay with himself. And the children from Dunblane Primary School, they faced the full force of his anger. I think he blamed children for what his life had become. He'd lost everything because of the allegations against him regarding his conduct with young boys. And I think he just genuinely believed that it was children to blame. So he took it out on a class of 5 and 6 year old babies. Now, he obviously knew that what he was doing was wrong. Insanity out the window. And again, only my opinion. In this instance, you cannot blame insanity for a couple of reasons. And again, in my opinion, it was premeditated. He took 4 legal licensed weapons plus extra ammunition with him that day to the school. He knew that there would be a class in the gymnasium. He took pliers, wire cutters with him to disable the phone lines, to take out the telegraph lines to the surrounding houses, to cut them off, so that, obviously it's before mobile phones, so no house phones, you can't phone in or out, no way of alerting the police. It was premeditated. And the fact that he shot himself, he knew, that he was going away for a very long time. What he did was fucked up. He was never getting away with insanity because it was premeditated. So he turned the gun on himself. To prevent him getting locked up for the rest of his natural life. Again, that is just my theory. We'll never know for sure. Because the only person who could have told us, thankfully, blew his brains out. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm glad he did. I am glad that horrible, twisted, sick fuck is dead. He killed 16 fucking children. Tiny children. Younger than my nephew. I'm glad he's dead. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. Bear with me. I'm just snoozing the ads because of... yeah. So, after the shooting in Dunblane, a blanket ban was issued for firearms in the UK. So that a thing like this would never happen again. And it never has. Think about that. Please. No guns means no mass shootings. Just saying. Personally, I believe that in certain circumstances, people can and should be allowed to own firearms. Law enforcement, farmers, hunters, to name but a few, in certain circumstances. However, the average person, us, me, yous, I'm upstairs. I'm meaning the ginger one, not God, because I'm not religious. But I mean the ginger one. We don't need them. Okay? I have weapons training. Because of my security background. I have weapons training. I grew up on a farm. I know how to handle a gun. Doesn't mean that I should own one. Doesn't mean that I want to own one. Why would I need a gun? I live in a tiny estate. Nothing ever happens here. Why would I need to own a gun? I don't. And before anybody comes at me, just for the record saying, oh, self-defence, what if somebody breaks into your house? I've got 2 big fuck-off dogs. Anyone breaks into my house, they've got to deal with Clyde, a heavier than normal German Shepherd, and Pepper, a very highly strung pit bull cross, just for the record. And if by some chance they manage to get past my dogs, they will then be met by me and my husband. 2 highly trained private security operatives. Yes, we are retired, but we still have the training. It's not like you retire from the life and then boom, the training's gone out your head, you forget. No. We will put you down without even thinking. Because we get paid a lot of money to do that for a very long time. So no, I don't need a gun. I don't want a gun. There is no conceivable reason on God's green earth that I can see me ever needing a gun. If I was still working in private security and I was working for diplomats or members of parliament, then yes, okay, maybe I can understand. But as it stands, me as a private citizen, I don't need a gun. So, yeah, I fully support the blanket ban on weapons. Because there's been no more school shootings. It worked. The UK has not had any more school shootings. The blanket ban worked. But, as I've stated, that is just my personal opinion. If you have a different opinion, then please let me know. Because everybody's got different opinions. Life would be boring if we all felt the same way, you know? So everybody has got different opinions. Whether it be a different opinion on why Thomas Hamilton did what he did, or maybe you don't agree. Maybe you think that private citizens should have access to firearms in certain circumstances. Again, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. There's no wrong opinions. That's the point of it being an opinion. Unless you tell me that cheese is bad, in which case your opinion's wrong, because cheese is amazing. But other than that, all opinions are valid. So that's the end of that. Rather morbid, sad, heartbreaking. That's the word I'm looking for. Fucking heartbreaking. And oh wait, I'm trying to snooze this so that there we go. So that is a heartbreaking tale, and I've been toying with it for a very long time. Now obviously there were some things that I didn't know because I was only 12 when it happened, but it's one that I wanted to get out there because it did change a lot of laws in the UK, and it changed Scotland. Do I believe that had it not happened, then people would still have easier access to guns? Yes. Had that not happened, then chances are that firearms would be easier accessed in this country. But if it wasn't Dunblane, it would have been somewhere else. All it takes is one person just to lose it, and that happens. Because you see it countless times across the pond in America, and they can't seem to get a handle on it, and it's terrifying, really. But luckily, it's not really a thing we have here very often anymore. It's, like I said, it was the first of its kind, and it was the last of its kind. But, oh, also, the gymnasium in question at Dunblane Primary School. Less than a month later, a private contractor went in, free of charge, and ripped the whole place to the ground. The gymnasium no longer exists. It was taken down a month later. Not even a month later, it was like a day short of a month. Also, another interesting, I don't know if you find it interesting or not, but kiddos here, she can back me up on this. When we were growing up, in the living room of our house, there was a certificate on the wall, and it belonged to my mother's grandfather, adopted, because my mother's mother was adopted, so her adopted grandfather. And that certificate was on the wall for as long as I can remember, always been there. And the day after the news broke of what happened at Dunblane, the day after the news broke, the certificate disappeared. I can't remember what the certificate was for. I really can't. It's been so, like I said, I was 12 at the time, so that was, I'm not going to tell you how many years, oh, I'm sure you can actually work it out considering I just turned 39, but, yeah, so, thank you, Kate. I'm actually going to be changing the blonde, just to say I'm putting a colour through it. I've just not got around to doing it yet, but I'm not telling you what colour it's going to be yet, because we're going live on Tuesday with it? Yeah, Tuesday. I'll be going live with Tuesday in the new hair. But thank you. I'm trying to get back to me, and the grey and silver was just kind of boring the crap out of me. I'd seen it for so long. Every time I looked in the mirror, it was grey hair, and I was like, I need this gone. And then my own hair was coming through, so I'd like multicoloured roots, and I had like blonde and gold coming through, and it was just, oh, please just stop. So I've got a colour upstairs. I'm not going to tell you what colour it is, but I will tell you that it is glow in the fucking dark. Yay, so this could be fun. But I'll be going live with the new colour on Tuesday. I nearly said Thursday there. It's cut, how much throwing me. I went live last night with the White Widow party, so that kind of threw me. But, yeah, so, back to this certificate. Now, the day after it broke, the certificate vanished. And I can't actually ever recall seeing it again. And I asked my mum about it at the time. She told me she'd get rid of it. She didn't want to be associated, because the name of my mother's father, adopted father, I just want to make that very clear, adopted father. So it was my mother's adoptive. My mother wasn't adopted, her mother was, and it was her mother's adopted father. The name on the certificate was Thomas Hamilton. Yeah. My grandmother, if you can call her that, her maiden name was Hamilton. kiddo's middle name is Hamilton. And my grandmother's father's name was Thomas Hamilton. So that certificate was taken off the wall, and all association with that name was gone. So yeah, there's that. But I mean, obviously, researching this, I have read many different witness accounts, victim accounts. There are interviews out there with survivors, some that were uninjured in the gymnasium, and some that were injured but survived, including a girl, beautiful girl, Amy. She broke down during the interview as she was recalling what had happened that day. Obviously, something like that, even though you're young, it stays with you. I mean, personally, I can't remember what I had for my dinner last week, let alone what happened to me when I was like 5 and 6. But something like that stays with you, and she was recalling running and just feeling a sharp pain and getting thrown to the ground. Now, the sharp pain was actually she had been shot in the top of her leg. So stuff like that, it's terrifying, and I'm so glad that it has never happened since. And the chances of it happening are really remote, considering we do have a blanket firearm ban in this country, which I am so grateful for. I am so glad that after that happened, they took the steps to just... And they didn't just, right, that's it, your guns are illegal, you need to give them up. They did it the right way. You could apply for a license, a weapons license, and you could, in certain circumstances, like I said, pharma and things like that, you could keep your weapons. But for the average citizen, rather than just hand over an expensive weapon, the government actually set up an initiative to compensate gun owners for being responsible and handing them over for destruction. So the government instructed the police to, rather than seize the weapons, they were buying the weapons. So people were a bit less hesitant, less hesitant in handing them over. But anyway, hit me up on Discord and let me know what you think about this story. And also the whole firearms thing, because obviously some of these firearms are a regular thing in your lives. Some, like myself, they're not. They were, but they're not. It's kind of... They were when I was younger, because I was in the farm. Then I went away from them. Then I got into security, and I done a wee bit more of the firearms, and then again I left. So, just let me know what you think. I'm in Discord. See if this works. It would freaking help if I type the right button. Yeah, hit me up in my section in Discord. But I'm gonna go because I've got a million and one things today, I'm afraid. But I'll be back next week. I'm in the middle of working on a few stories. I'll be completely honest with you. I don't know as of yet what one I'm going live with, but there will be something. But until next time, bye bye now.